Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Alison Larkin, writer, comedian, narrator, and host of the Jane Austen podcast. Join me as we embark on a journey through Austen's timeless stories, starting with Pride and Prejudice. The Jane Austen podcast with Alison Larkin is available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to Buffering the Vampire Slayer, a podcast where we're watching and discussing every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one at a time. I'm Jenny Owen Youngs.
And I'm Kristin Russo, and this week we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 4, Teacher's Pet.
Stay tuned at the end of this episode for a song that will recap the episode after we finish talking through recapping the episode. Mm-hmm. So many recaps, so little time.
My first question is, do you have plans to put Xander's sweet, sweet guitar solo into your song?
Like the actual melodic guitar solo or referencing his guitar solo lyrically?
I meant, no. I meant the actual guitar solo, whether via sample or playing it yourself.
Well, legally...
Legally?
And also technically. I don't
really?
know.
You think that somebody has the rights to that song?
Well, the actual sound clip, we couldn't use. I don't think I'm going to be able to play that.
Wow.
And I'm certainly not going to devote my time to learning it.
Do you at least like my idea, or are we having a business meeting?
I love your idea. Okay. I forgot that we weren't having a business meeting.
Yeah, you did. You were like,
I'm tightening my tie, got my abacus, put it on the desk.
Well, you see, this is how music works.
Thank you for coming by, Ms. Russo.
There went my whole joke down the tubes to the profession of music.
I am deeply shamed.
Man, I have so many notes for this episode.
I have a lot of notes too.
I took some notes that were more general about things I wanted to talk about, and then I had so many specific notes that I don't even know where to begin.
Well, why don't we try to go generally chronologically?
Right. Well, I start with the teaser cold open and have a note to talk about the credits as well.
You're saying Xander's daydream and then also the credits.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about in every generation there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer.
Pretty tight.
Which I wrote down because I was like, well, we should talk about this.
Yeah, I think that's at the beginning of every episode of season 1.
And then it goes away.
I think so, but we'll find out.
I guess you'll have to wait. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that and then the credits, which we haven't really talked about either.
We sure haven't.
Dun, 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 dun,
Great song by Nerf Herder.
We see lots of clips, so we have I feel like if you're an avid viewer, you're watching. I used to always watch the opening sequence of shows, especially in the beginning, because I knew that they were pulling from future episodes.
Right, and you wanted some clues.
Yes, I might be able to glean some clues about what was to come.
Yeah.
And little by little, we're ticking them off.
We've seen the cat jump out of the chest in Witch.
Yeah, and the cauldron is also in the credits.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. And then I think the crucifix necklace is in the credits, which is obviously the first episode.
They've got to really get their money's worth out of that shot.
But there's some looks between some characters and some stuff that happens that I noticed, and I was like, oh, foreshadowing.
What are you? Anything you saw that you want to talk about?
No. What if they're launching for the first time? They can watch the credits themselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Draw their own conclusions.
Talking to you out there. But yeah, so and then right, I do want to talk about Xander's dream, though. I'm sure you want to talk about it.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
2 feminists in a room dealing with Xander's dream.
Oh man. Well, listen, who among us didn't want to rescue a pretty girl when we were in high school,
Two
or
queer
junior high,
feminists
or
in a
elementary
room.
school, or preschool, or potentially in the womb.
Were you having dreams about rescuing damsels in distress in preschool?
Maybe not preschool, but like early elementary school.
Yeah, you seem like the type.
Thanks, I think.
But yeah, this is like classic damsel in distress desire dream here.
Right.
And I love how slapstick funny it gets, because it's not even just like Xander daydreaming about saving Buffy, but then he's like, yeah, I can do my solo and still be back in time to kiss you. Like there's like so many, or whatever he says, where there's like so many layers. He not only wants to make out with Buffy, but also he's the best guitar player, best guitar soloer in all the land.
Right. But do you feel like that's just part of his daydream because it's part of what makes him desirable to Buffy in his daydream?
I don't think Buffy's given us any indication that she is attracted to sweet guitar soloists.
Isn't attractive.
I took that more as like the masculine desire to be one of many things, and like a rock star, a savior, you know, all those things. It was very, what did I write about it? Oh, I just said like the everyman dream of being the woman's savior and playing. And then I said, my note was, every man's dream of being her savior and playing a guitar solo. Oh man, oh man, oh men. Am I right? That was my full note.
Oh man, oh man, oh men. Am I right?
But then you kind of upended that by telling us that, of course, you were having the same kinds of fantasies.
Right.
So
sorry for upending that.
no, I mean, I think it's a very interesting upending.
I was going to say, well, I was having those fantasies without the benefit of male privilege, but then I was like, are we going to say male privilege on this podcast?
Well, we did say we were going to try to say patriarchy once every episode.
And that's the once.
Yeah, so.
Moving right along. I love the science teacher.
Oh, man, what a short-lived love it
He
was.
believes in Buffy.
I took some like real-time notes this time around, like where I was like writing because I did not know this episode. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. And after I talked about Buffy's lip gloss, which we can get back to in a minute, I wrote, oh, this teacher is so nice. Don't let him be a demon. No, he's going to be a demon. Is he an ant? Oh, no, he got attacked by an ant. That was
wow, what a beautiful window into your mind.
That was what was happening. Yeah, I just wrote it down. I have one more later. I'll have another stream of consciousness. So
great.
Yeah.
Wait, but tell me about Buffy's lip gloss.
I just so as Buffy goes over to talk to the teacher, what's the teacher's name? Do you know?
The science teacher's name is Dr. Gregory.
Dr. Gregory. So as Buffy's going to talk to Dr. Gregory, there's like a nice close up. Yeah, we see many close ups of Buffy's face, and her lip gloss looked so on point, and it made me think back to my lip gloss days. You know, I mean, I had some serious lip gloss days. I don't know if you bypassed that in your life. But
I didn't have too many lip gloss days.
I loved a lip gloss. I had like many, many, many different kinds of lip gloss. And the pinnacle lip gloss for me was, I can't remember the name of it. It was not called Lip Demon, but for some reason that's what just came into my head. And it had like a plumper in it or something.
Oh, Lord.
So it would burn your lips, but it would like make them super shiny and full. And I felt like maybe Buffy was racking that. I don't know. I can't remember what it was called, but that's my lip gloss sidebar.
Who knew that there was plumping lip gloss? I'm so
yeah.
uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, I know. And who knows what was in it? Like, what was I putting on my mouth?
God.
But yeah, so this teacher, we love him. He loves Buffy.
He believes in her. He thinks she can do anything. He doesn't care about her permanent record.
He doesn't. And it's like,
what a guy.
You know, taking that through the whole episode, I just felt like they showed you so many times during this episode how much it meant to her as a student and as a person to have had just one person believe in her, which I felt was really cool and obviously obviously spot on. It was just like, wow, this person believed in her and she's doing her homework.
Mm-hmm. And it's paying off.
And how proud was Willow?
So proud.
When Buffy is in the library and she's like, I'm going to do my homework, and it cuts to Willow, and Willow is like,
so just beaming with pride.
Beaming.
So lovely.
That was a great moment. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do we want to talk any more about that teacher, or that was it?
Oh, well, I'm sad he's dead. I'm sad that he had to have his head eaten by the mantis. Now I'm wondering.
Oh.
My first note was, is Dr. Gregory a virgin? Because I remembered that she specifically was luring virgins, right? And then I was like, oh, maybe she was just hungry and she needed to get him out of the way in order to become the substitute so she could start luring boys home. But then in the very, very last scene of the episode, there are eggs in the science lab. So where'd those eggs come from?
So does that then mean that he was a virgin?
That's what I'm wondering. And not to get too far ahead of myself, but is he being considered a virgin perhaps because he is a gay Dr. Gregory?
Right.
And in the 90s, that might mean you were a virgin to some people or large bugs.
Or maybe to a praying mantis, that means you're a virgin to people. Yeah. Maybe it isn't even societal, maybe praying mantises are just...
It's more special.
It's more like if you fertilized another's eggs.
Right. Ooh, science, I love you.
Yeah. Like maybe that's what it is. But that's a very astute observation. You'd almost think that you'd watched this episode 400,000 times. I didn't even think about that.
That's where I'm at.
So I wanted to talk about the bronze. We get to go to the bronze a couple of times in this episode, which is always very exciting to me because I find the bronze to be one of the main characters in the show. Right. As I had mentioned on the first episode. And this band, you said they are a real band that was playing?
Looks like that band is called Superfine. And we hear them perform Already Met You. We see them perform Already Met You. And then later we hear them perform Stoner Love.
Oh, wow.
And the songs are from their EP Superfine.
Well,
Already Met You also appeared on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the album.
Oh, we should get that album. Why do you not have that album?
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Whew. So that's exciting. First of all, also Already Met You. Great song choice for when Angel is back at the bronze. And not to get too ahead of myself, because that wasn't even my first note, but what a cut. What a reveal. What a hunk.
Such a hunk.
But what the note that I made was about the silver shirt that the band leaders.
I made that note too.
Tell me what you were thinking.
I was thinking did I have that shirt or something similar at some point? Because Hot Topic, probably.
Yes, and I did have. That was my note. I had not that shirt, but it was a silver shirt, and it was I had an outfit that I was obsessed with, and I went to see Bush in concert.
Oh boy!
And I wore my silver shirt, similar to the one that gentleman is wearing, underneath my overalls, with heels or chunky heels that were clear. The shoe was clear, like Coke Zero or whatever the hell that totally see-through. And the heel was silver and the laces were silver.
Good Lord.
I looked great.
Right. Oh, that's the concert where you think Gavin Rossdale made a bunch of eye contact with you, right?
He did. He definitely, I stood on the chair in the theater and he looked into my soul.
I bet.
Yeah.
What do you think he saw there?
A beautiful girl in a silver shirt. But yeah, so that was
He was probably like, oh, is that Rob from Superfun?
Yeah. Oh, we can clear up the mystery for him after all these years.
You're welcome, Gavin.
Yeah. And then, I think a very important thing that happens at the bronze before we cut to Angel, my note of which is OMG Angel, is Xander and this guy, Blaine.
Ugh.
Right?
The worst.
Yeah. And this moment between them is just rushed.
It's
with
crushing.
Blaine being like, I banged this girl and then I banged this other girl and I banged all the girls. And then Xander, instead of just being like, oh, that's a rude way to talk about women. Xander does not do that. Xander's
he instead responds like a boy in high school.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I kept having to talk myself down.
Right.
This is supposed to be an accurate portrayal of boys in high school.
And look at them go. And at least he's not like Blaine and he's just like Xander.
Right. So they have this moment really setting the scene for the rest of the episode, because this whole episode is hinges on masculinity and the need for boys and men to feel that they are possessing masculinity, whether in the form of like not being virgin or being tough or playing a sweet guitar solo.
Right. But it's also about flipping the script and taking that power and giving it to a lady or a mantis.
Right. What a lovely wordplay.
I wasn't even thinking about how the first half of mantis is man, but that's interesting.
Yeah. No, that's the whole thing though, right? Like the core of this is this like challenged, fragile masculinity. And then we say this is only the 4th episode of this podcast, but I feel like we're constantly talking about how that's flipped. It's flipped.
Right.
And so this episode does just that. It brings in
maybe my favorite way so far. Oh, you want to have sex with me? Get a load of this.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I had a little moment before we meet, speaking of praying mantis, before we meet Miss French. Giles has a moment
my God.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. I think we took all the same notes.
Wow. Okay, well, that's good. That's helpful because otherwise this episode would be 6 hours long.
Right.
So I took a lot of notes. But there's a moment where Giles is like, yeah, it's sunny. It's sunny here every day. And like rolls his eyes and he's so disgusted with California. And I fell in love with Giles in that moment as a new Los Angeles transplant from the East Coast. He's coming from overseas where it's gray and rainy.
Right.
But I'm coming from the East Coast where it can at least be gray and rainy and can be cold or hot. It can be many things. Mm-hmm. And I'm really struggling to acclimate to this, constant sun and then like the lack of a change of season.
Right.
So I really identify.
Really feeling it.
I was really feeling it. I was like, God, Giles, me too, man. LA is weird. So that's all. It's a little moment. And then in comes the teacher.
Woo! Up she walks on the sidewalk, and that unfortunate music starts thrumming in the background, sort of like vaguely tribal sound.
Really? I don't remember.
Sort of like tribal drumming, which I feel like is supposed to signify Xander's, like sort of primal urges rising up in his nether regions.
Gross.
Sorry.
I don't know if we should ever say Xander and nether regions in the same breath. Personal preference. But yeah, and then there's Blaine again and Xander. Like this is a horrible way to say this, but the note I took was, God, this episode is just one big dick fight between Blaine and Xander. It's just like Xander being like, I'm a dude, and then Blaine being like, I'm more of a dude. I'll show you where that science classroom is. It's right here next to the field where I won that award with my penis.
Speaking of which, I'm guessing then that Blaine has been like left back or something, or is taking last year's science class, because he's saying he led his team to victory the previous year, but Xander, Buffy, and Willow are they taking freshman classes?
Oh, are they fresh? See, I don't even know what year they are.
Or maybe they're sophomore. I'm sorry, they're sophomores.
Okay.
But wow, he was on varsity in freshman year. Now I'm impressed.
Blaine got you.
You got me.
Jenny will go home with you, Blaine.
Blaine!
And then right away, as soon as we get into the classroom, I was like, oh, she's a praying mantis. Like,
there was just like mantis paraphernalia everywhere. Yeah. There was like a computer printout of like a close-up of a mantis face taped up on the wall. She's got one. Now that's kind of weird and reminds me of the episode of BoJack Horseman we just watched with the friend chickens and
chickens?
food chickens.
Yeah.
There's this gigantic praying mantis carrying around a regular praying mantis in a little terrarium.
Oh,
thing.
man. That praying mantis must have been like shitting itself, Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I guess she wouldn't hesitate to eat a miniature version of her own kind if she's regularly biting off the heads of her mates, be they human or mantis.
I know we're early on in this series, but the construction of the demons and the bad things is really, like, it really gets me to my core, especially when we start to peel it apart and, like, you're, like, talking about her. She is very upsetting in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that 360-degree head spin, or 180-degree head spin, I should say.
Yes, and, like, good casting.
Yeah, I feel like that actor is just
She's,
really,
like, perfect.
She really nailed it.
Do you think she walked in and they were like, well...
Yeah.
You got it.
She is, what is her name? Her name is Musetta Vander.
Oh, what? For real?
Uh-huh. And she's from South Africa, which you can sort of hear at various points. You can hear like a touch of an accent, but it sounds like she's trying to keep it pretty American sounding.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know where she was from, and I thought she was doing a very, very mild accent. Because I did notice the accent for sure.
I could be also totally wrong.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe that's just like where she's at.
Right, right. Obviously we're going to talk about this praying mantis teacher a bunch, but I did want to say I really appreciated another little I'm here to pull out the feminist moments in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but Blaine and Xander are outside and they're like volleying for this teacher, and Xander has a moment where he can't think of where the science room is, and he looks to them and he's like, could you help me out? Could you? And they're
Buffy
like,
and Willow are just like, absolutely not.
Yeah,
bro.
they just
Good
shake their heads. It was really nice. It was really nice.
I feel like it's worth mentioning too, like while we're talking about casting, I feel like Price Jackson, who plays Blaine Mall, is like pretty amazing casting for like that douche you hate in high school.
Yeah, totally. Also, though, be careful with your usage of the word douche.
How would you describe him?
I mean, no, obviously. He's the worst.
Redacted.
He's the worst, but, whatever.
Thank you for helping me help myself.
Also, we know right in the start of this scene that Blaine is totally fucked, right? Like,
oh, you can't be that big of a jerk.
Yeah, and she's going for him first.
Right. Wait. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No.
I wanted to say, when she's teaching her first class, I love this moment where she's saying, "The mantis is forced to live alone. Who can tell me why? Buffy?" And I feel like Ms. French sensed something in Buffy, that there was something in Buffy that kept her apart from her fellow students and teenagers.
I missed that line. I was not even aware of it. That's very, I like that.
I'm like very insightful about this episode.
You really are. You're picking the good notes. I put from that same scene where she's like, and then the mantis, and she's like very sexually describing what's happening with the mantis. And I thought, did Isabella Rossellini watch this episode and get her inspiration for her series? What is it called?
Green Porno.
Green Porno. Because it like might as well have been the praying mantis episode of
If I Were a Mantis.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So
actually, I wonder if there is a mantis episode of, I think there is because of the head biting. Oh, you mean specifically that episode? I'm catching up here. I just thought you meant like conceptually. Wow.
No. I think the first episode of Green Porno that I saw was the praying mantis episode. And so this was like, oh man, this is the same thing. They could have cast her to play the mantis.
Couple things about the cafeteria.
Ooh.
A hot dog surprise. Whoa.
And then the only thing that might be worse than hot dog surprise is your headless teacher in a fridge.
Oh, right. But in between those two things, there's another low point, which is Blaine saying he's carving up for his after-school session with Ms. French.
Oh, God.
So sick.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so if anybody was going to find a body, wow, I'm so glad it was Cordelia!
So glad it was Cordelia. Insert Cordelia song.
Cordelia, I love you, Cordelia. You're perfect, Cordelia.
Yes, here she is. This is her first entrance in the episode, I believe, because I wrote in all caps, Cordy.
Yeah, she's only in 2 scenes, right? We see her discover the body, and then we see her in with the counselor, but she really makes very limited screen time count in this episode.
She really does. What a scream. What a scream.
Yeah, that's up there.
It is up there. Patricia Arquette still holds the award. Episode 3 of Nightmare on Elm Street.
There'll be no toppling Patricia Arquette.
No.
But Charisma Carpenter holding her own.
Yeah, that was a great scream, and it came right on the heels of us finding out that every day Cordelia goes into the kitchen to get her medically prescribed lunch. I love her.
I love her too. What do you think's in there? Do you think she's on the Whole 30?
Definitely. She's way ahead of the curve. She started the Whole 30 in 97. Sure. For sure.
Then we go right to Buffy and Willow and Xander in the library with Giles once again. Tumbleweeds in the library. Only the Slayerettes meet there.
Yeah.
And Giles gives Buffy a glass of water, and then he goes and gets his death newspaper. He's always got a death newspaper ready to shake in their faces and say, well, these people died and this person's missing, and oh my goodness.
Right. I mean, they have to have some character touchstones. That's Giles. Giles always is reading the death paper. For Xander, Xander's always wearing his sweater with the stripe in it, which also appears in this in this part of the episode.
Speaking of wardrobe, is it just me? Or is Fork Guy the vampire kind of dressed like he just got off shooting an episode of Xena Warrior Princess?
Do you know who I thought of when I saw Fork Guy? Is, the movie Hocus Pocus?
I thought you were going to say, the movie Predator? And I was going to be like, yeah, exactly.
No.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. Remember, I can't remember his name. He's one of my favorite characters.
The guy with his mouth sewn shut?
Yeah. He's like styled the same, except for he has a scissor hand. I don't know.
I didn't see that. But
he's like all like dusty with like these like natted pieces of hair. For those of you listening who were confused about my silence, I was wiggling in my chair and wiggling my hands above my head to show Jenny.
Yeah. So just picture that and you'll have an
hairstyle.
idea of what's going on here.
But yeah, scissor hand guy. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't call him that. We don't want to confuse him with Edward.
Fork Guy.
Fork Guy. Fork Guy is a very likable character in this episode.
Yeah. He's definitely a villain.
Yeah. It was hard for me to understand him as a vampire because he didn't seem like one because of his fork hand.
And because of his leathery, like, horse lord outfit.
Oh, speaking of
he looked like a Dothraki.
Okay,
sorry.
I'll let you have that moment for yourself. You good? Okay.
Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. And if you have sensitive skin, you're going to want to hear about their scientifically proven topical supplements. Free from over 1,500 chemicals and preservatives that can make skin red, irritated, or itchy, their products are safe for sensitive skin. It's just one of the reasons they've earned the Skin Safe seal of approval.
They've also earned the Jenny Owen Youngs and Kristin Russo seal of approval, if I do say so myself, Jenny.
I couldn't agree more. I've been using OneSkin for a few months, and after a few weeks, I remember it like it was yesterday. I texted Kristen and I was like, maybe she's born with it. I looked in the mirror that morning and was like, oh, things are happening and I am happy.
I have used 1 billion skin products and I did not think that I was going to switch off of the skin like lotion, the moisturizer that I used and the under eye cream that I use because I have used them for a little while and I really like them. And I've switched completely, which is a pretty big deal. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code BUFFERING at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code BUFFERING. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and if you can, please tell them that we sent you.
As a podcast network, our focus is bringing you shows you love to listen to. But we also sell merch related to those shows. And partnering with Shopify has made that both possible and simple for us to do. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor adventures, Shopify helps you sell everywhere because they've got you covered from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. What's so fantastic about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, they provide everything you need to get control of your business so you can take it to the next level. Businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm. That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/realm.
Yeah.
Leathery just made me remember back to the scene where we saw Angel for the first time. Jenny, this is why we never see that amazing leather jacket again that she wore to a couple.
She's wearing Angel's jacket for the rest of the time.
She takes Angel's jacket.
Here's a thing. Let's think about this realistically. Sarah Michelle Gellar is what, like 5'1", 5'2", and David Boreanaz is like, I think he's around 6 feet tall.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bit of a size difference.
How can we possibly suspend our disbelief enough to take hold of his assertion that jacket looks better on you, Buffy?
You know what? If it means that hunky Angel is giving his jacket to Buffy, I will suspend all of my disbelief.
And now walking around in a tank top.
Yeah, win-win. It's a great thing.
Oh my God. Giles, following our introduction to Fork Guy and also watching how incredibly scared he is of Ms. French, which is so great, we have two great things from Giles, and they are... Whew. First of all, we see him with a mug, but it's not his green home mug. It's his work mug. So don't get confused if last episode you decided to be my comrade in the field hunting down a green mug. That's not... No. We didn't see the mug in question in this episode. That is just some shoddy work mug.
You will not get...
the teacher's lounge. Don't look at that mug. Look away.
You won't get a song for that mug.
No. And then... Buffy asks him if he knows Miss French, the substitute biology teacher, and he says, "Oh yes, she's lovely, in a common, extremely well-proportioned way." Smooth Giles,
very smooth Giles. Giles is too smart, too well read to possibly admit that he might be attracted to a lady who isn't, reading a book. Always.
I'm only interested in books and tweed.
My next little note here is when we have Xander with Miss French at her house. So if you have something before that,
just before that, she's like, "Would you be willing to come to my place?" And he's like, "Duh." And then it cuts to him taking the ripping guitar solo.
Right.
Which is pretty great.
That is a good moment. And actually there is an important moment to probably talk about. Well, there's two. One, she eats a fucking sandwich of crickets.
A cricket witch.
Which is must be your nightmare because Jenny hates crickets.
Well, those crickets aren't as bad as the ones we have in our garage, which remind me of crickets we had in the cellar where we kept the inner tubes. Inner tubes, in case you didn't grow up in the middle of the woods, are the inflatable tubes that go inside your tires. And if you are not the kind of person who has something else to float around on in a river, creek, or lake, you might take an inner tube, blow it up, and go floating around in it.
Wait, inner tubes are tubes from inside of tires, and that's why they're called inner tubes?
Yes.
I just thought, and I thought you were so silly telling everybody what an inner tube was, because I was like, everyone knows an inner tube is just a floating tube that goes into the pool.
I guess I could have just left it at that, but I wanted to be specific that the ones we had were from actually inside of tires and not the branded ones that you would buy at the sporting goods store.
But how cool is that? I never even knew that's why they were called inner tubes. I didn't know where the word inner. I just suspended my disbelief. I was like, sure, they're inner tubes. I'll call them that. Anyway,
we kept our inner tubes, real inner tubes, in this weird cellar compartment, and I would have to go in to get them if we were going to go swimming. And there were enormous, mutant crickets. We called them hippity hops because, my mom actually came up with a name. I was going to say we called them that because we were children, but my mom dubbed them, I believe, hippity hops. And they're kind of translucent and enormous and the worst. And the ones we have in the garage here are smaller versions of that. Those I wouldn't want to eat. I feel like the ones
you'd want to eat the tiny ones?
If I had to choose between Ms. French... the Ms. French cricket witch or a cricket witch of my own making using the crickets in our garage, I would pick her cricket witch.
Well, this is good. Good to know. Good to know that in the game show you just made up where you have to decide between eating the cricket witch we saw or the cricket witch you make. You will pick Ms. French's cricket witch. The other thing that I didn't write but that I remembered is that this is the moment when it probably should have been last episode when Buffy was like, Xander probably has a crush on me because we didn't talk about it, but
the bracelet!
Last episode he gave her a bracelet. What did it say?
Yours always.
Right.
And then he said, they all said that. But he went to Things Remembered and he selected the engravable charm bracelet and was like, yours always.
Wow. And there's a relic that lives on today. Things Remembered stood the test of time.
Things Remembered is still a thing?
I was
not just remembered?
No, So it's still a thing, and it is still remembered, and it is still in Crossgates Mall in Albany, New York. But this is a moment, like this moment between Xander and Buffy is like very, very telling for Buffy. I think it must be the first time that she's really noticing that Xander has feelings for her, because Xander loses his whole mind. He loses his whole mind. He's like, oh, you can't stand it that I have feelings for another woman?
Right.
And she's
right.
what in the...
What are you
what
talking
the hell
about?
is going on? So that was an important moment. But then the next note I have is in all caps, your hands are really serrated, which was a line I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. I also wrote that down. And then I immediately wrote down after that, wow, that morphing effect. I mean, I know it was 1997 and everybody was doing the best they could with the money they had.
Right.
But wow, that morphing effect.
Yeah, I mean, hand to what do you call a mandible? What do you call a
mandibles are like by your mouth,
right.
or your mouth if you have mandibles, not your mouth.
The big reveal of this episode is that I, Kristin Russo, have mandibles.
Yes. Could we just call that a mantis paw?
Yes, a mantis
I'm sure
paw.
that's not accurate, but I like it.
The transformation to a mantis paw. I was in. I think that I go into this knowing that it's 97, so I'm certainly, I'm not watching for like the best effects. But I swear some of the effects in stuff that is made before effects had such high power are more intriguing to me than the high-tech stuff that we have now. Which in 20 years will be the low-tech stuff, but whatever.
Right. I tend to prefer stuff that's heavier on practical effects than computer-generated whatnots.
Right. But yeah, so here's Xander. Xander's about to have
thinks
sex.
He's getting it.
And what a traumatic scarring experience. We don't look at things like that too often in the show, but think about.
Oof, that would be so rough.
You've never had this moment before. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have sex with this woman. This is a teacher. This is an older woman. Like all the things that are going through Xander's head. And then she transforms into a fucking praying mantis before his eyes. Like, do you think it's going to be a minute before Xander is even attracted to any person ever again?
It's going to take some time. He's going to need to do some healing.
It's a psychological mind bend right there is what that is. But yeah, so she's a mantis. She brings him to the basement where we find that guess what? Blaine's there.
What a virgin.
What a virgin. And when and this is, we talked about this in the beginning of this episode, how, there's so many upendings of masculinity in this show. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about this scene too was it seemed like the more you touted your masculinity, the bigger baby you became in the face of danger.
Right.
Which I love. And I've seen that happens in other movies and other shows. Right. And I really enjoy it, I think, because it's a nice underlining of how ridiculous it is that on the outside, so many men feel the need to be like, bah, bah,
to puff
bah.
themselves up.
Right. To puff themselves up. When really in the face of a praying mantis, we're all just as scared. And Blaine is the most scared. Xander's actually...
He's pretty cool under fire, all things considered. Also, if you're going to break a bar off of your cell, why wouldn't you break a bar off that leads out of the
Which
cell?
is the question that Blaine asks to give Blaine a point. Right. He's like, man, what? But yeah, Xander stays really calm considering and makes a break for it and then slams his head. That head slam made me gasp aloud.
Yeah, that was bad.
It was a bad
bang. And then down the stairs.
Meanwhile, in Sunnydale.
Back to the library with Buffy, Willow, and Giles, and it's revealed after Giles gets off the phone with his colleague, who is now in an asylum, who chased and hunted a she-mantis for a long time and was driven mad in his pursuit, has revealed to Giles that the mantis, in fact, is seeking human male virgins, right? Mm-hmm. And Giles repeats this to Buffy and Willow, and Buffy tries to wrap her mind around is he probably, he's fine, right? He must be fine. And Willow's like, we gotta go right now.
Willow knows what's up.
Yeah.
Willow, and something we see in this episode too, I think, is Willow starting to make a little bit more apparent that she has some kind of feelings for Xander.
She loves his head.
She loves him very much.
That's where his eyes are and his hair.
Right. It's very sweet. It's very sweet. And that's, we'll explore more. But then Buffy goes and gets old forkhand to show them where to find this teacher mantis.
After briefly meeting with the woman whose social security number the she-mantis stole, Buffy elects to hop down into the sewer, grab old fork guy,
right,
and have him essentially lead her like a bloodhound through a literal bloodhound,
right,
through the neighborhood until she finds the house that he's scared of.
And this is a great moment too, because the whole episode starts with Angel being like, "You're gonna have a tough time with this one. Don't let him get you in a corner. Here's my jacket." And Buffy's like, "I need this one for another project, actually. Let me tie him up and lead him through the streets like a puppy dog that I have on a leash." So she was fine. That guy, see you later, via fence stake.
Right. And then she's had Giles record some bat sonar because she did her homework.
Right, because she did her homework because the teacher believed in her.
Gregory.
God, if there's any takeaway message that I'm most happy about in this whole episode, well, okay, takeaway message number 1, women can bite your head off, so fuck off. Takeaway message number 2 is like teachers believing in students is so powerful.
Yeah, it's really important.
But yeah, so then the virgins, Blaine is a virgin, Xander is a virgin. We like that bow is tied, that
Right.
You know, puffed up masculinity, ha ha ha. It's nothing. It's just all a farce. And then my next note in all caps is Angel is so hot. Angel smiled. Angel smiled.
Wait, before just sticking to chronology,
okay, I'll read that again.
1 second, because we're going to need to talk about Angel a little bit more.
Yeah.
Once they get into the mantis lair, and Buffy's like, "Get a load of this," and she hits play on the tape recorder, and you hear Giles' voice. "Extremely important to file, not only alphabetically." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Flip it over." And then, once she gets the tape flipped over and hits play again, she's like, oh, so classic. "Bat sonar makes your whole nervous system go to hell. You can go there with it." Hack, 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 hack. It's such a great horror zinger, like, like has a real classic heft to it.
Totally. And that's like, I don't think this is a spoiler, but we get deep into Buffy's sarcastic remarks later in the series, because I remember that specifically, like being something that becomes so much a part of
the
her
banter.
Right. So much part of her repertoire that when people do impersonations of her, that's
right.
That's what they hold to is this ridiculous banter. I mean, not ridiculous, amazing banter that she can not only kill these demons, but she can be like, dun-dun-dun, before she slays. It's great. It's so great.
And also, one last thing before we go back to Angel Town. I just wanted to note that this episode begins with Xander having a daydream about saving Buffy and ends with Buffy saving Xander.
And there it is.
Something to think about.
But
So, Angel, he's like, "Keep the jacket, toots."
Yeah.
And then he smiles, and then he walks away, and she's like, "Oh boy."
He smiles. And I'm like, "Oh boy."
I know, me
Isn't
too.
everyone?
Yeah.
Sexuality aside?
My kingdom for a time machine and the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, because he has definitely not smiled. Every cell in my body knew that I had not seen him yet smile when he smiled. We've only seen him be very serious, and he's, I don't know, maybe he likes Buffy a little bit. She's making him smile. He's given her his jacket. What I want to know is, can we time travel back so that I can be like, "Hey, Buffy, now that you have Angel's jacket, can I borrow your brown leather jacket that you wore a few episodes ago?"
I need to get some screen grabs. We need to screen grab that jacket, post it on socials. Have you seen this jacket?
Have you? We should put up signs in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Missing.
And a thing that I also thought was really funny as the episode was winding down, Buffy's like, "Oh, what does she say? Oh boy."
Oh boy.
Was that because then she goes, I don't know what the order is, but she gets the teacher's glasses.
Right, that's the very last.
The very last scene. and she puts it in his like jacket pocket, which is behind the door. And that was my first emotion. Oh, like I'm so moved, and like this teacher really meant so much to her. And then I thought, why have no police been involved in this investigation? Why is his jacket and his glasses still in a classroom that is open to students? When he has been beheaded inside of the school and put into a refrigerator.
Well, I think either the police in Sunnydale are so busy,
right,
that they can't possibly get to every beheading,
right,
or they're so used to totally bonkers shit happening all the time,
right.
They're like, well, unless you like need us to stop an active criminal from doing something in front of you right now, we'll be doing that elsewhere.
God, I guess that's true, because the first episode there was that dead guy in the locker. And no police.
Extreme dead guy in the locker.
And we saw no police intervention then either.
No, we don't see a whole lot of police in Sunnydale.
So interesting. Interesting to me that all of the evidence from this man's murder was just open, free range for anyone to play with or touch.
Yikes.
Or have their feelings about good teachers on.
Thank God that was possible, so Buffy could get a little closure and say goodnight, Dr. Gregory, and then we could see the eggs.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Buffy does her homework more now in future episodes, or if it was just a one-episode arc.
We shall see.
Yeah, we shall see.
I've got a question for you. Did you ever have a crush on any of your teachers?
Ooh. Good question. I think that I might have had like a crush on my first grade teacher without knowing that it was a crush, because I like so vividly remember her. Her name was Mrs. Wells, and I don't know what she actually looked like, but my memory of her is like she was very young, I'm sure, like, in her 20s or something. And she had long blonde hair. And I just remember like loving her so much. So that's my most visceral teacher love memory, but it was before the time when I could obviously identify it as any kind of actual crush. And that's the biggest thing I remember in terms of, Wow. What about you?
I had crushes on a couple of teachers in high school, but like, I don't want to say their names in case like they are Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans.
Why? This would be a great reveal for them. Say the names. Say the names. Okay.
I'm not going to say their names, but I'll like... be more descriptive. There was like an art teacher who was like the super hot young art teacher that everybody had a crush on. And there was like an English teacher who was like really smart and cool.
And we can't know their names.
No.
Great. Well, I'll do some research, audience. I'll see if I can find their names for us.
Perfect.
You don't want your teachers to know you had a crush on them?
No, heavens no. That would be so humiliating. Well, / probably they already know.
Mrs. Wells from Our Lady of Lords in West Islip, New York. If you're out there, I would like for you to know the first grade Kristen thought you were pretty rad.
Wow. You're really something.
Thanks.
I feel like we really did a number on this episode.
I know. I'm like actually happy that I got through the notes that I had, because when I finished this episode, I was like, oh, I have so much to say.
We might not. This might be a 2-hour episode.
This might be a
very special episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is our holiday special.
Yeah, Teacher's Pet really got me. A lot happened in it. I was excited. Things that happened in this episode that didn't happen last episode. Like I think, like Angel was here, the Bronze was here. Like there were just things that personally get Kristen fired up in this episode. So I had more to say specifically about things.
More Buffy and Willow being willfully silent feminists.
Yes, exactly. Less Cordelia, which
is a bummer.
But her presence was noted and loved
and felt. And more, I just feel like a little more depth from everybody. Just like a little partial layer carved out.
We're getting there.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
I'm so excited. It's like all I want to do, I want you all to know that and stay with me and us if you're watching this for the first time or rewatching it, because all I want to do is be like, okay, Jenny, but can we just watch can we just watch a bunch of episodes so that like we can see all of these amazing things that I know are coming along. But I'm going to be patient.
You're going to pace yourself.
I'm going to pace myself for this podcast. So listeners, pace yourselves too, so you can watch along with us, because I think it's the most fun way.
This podcast thanks you.
Cool. Well, Teacher's Pet.
We did it. What a great episode.
We did, and we might, according to the end of this episode, we may have to do it again, because those eggs were looking mighty hatched.
Yeah, they were really feeling
they were
mature.
ready to go. And that is a classic horror ending too.
Totally, very Wes Craven.
Yes, it's like, and
to be continued.
The bow is
possibly.
tied. Just kidding. Just kidding. Because the monster is still out there. So yeah, A++ for this episode. One of my favorites so far. Out of 4.
Super great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that's it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. My name's Jenny Owen Youngs, and you can find me on Twitter at Jenny Owen Youngs.
And I'm Kristin Russo, and you can find me on Twitter at Kristin Noeline, which is KristinNoeline. Well, we're all going to get there together. One day we'll all know how to spell my name. Or you can just follow me at Everyone is Gay.
And if you'd like to find us on Twitter as a podcast, you can tweet at us at BufferingCast, or you can write us an email at bufferingthevampireslayer@gmail.com.
We are going to read some of the messages that we've gotten from you and talk about some of the questions you've asked us on some special episodes this season and next season and seasons into the future called mailbag episodes, Jenny said, right? That's what they're called in podcast
mailbag
land.
episodes. That's what professional podcasters call them.
Jenny's teaching me how to be a professional podcaster. So stay tuned for those.
Yeah, and we've been loving the emails we've been getting so far. It's been so delightful to receive them.
Yeah, and speaking of delightful things to receive and lovely notes, if you haven't yet gone to iTunes and left us a review, please do. We would love to hear from you, especially if you have a positive opinion. But, those reviews are super helpful. It helps people say, like, oh, is this for real? And then they see your wonderful, lovely reviews, and they're like, this is for real because Anonymous loved it. So, yeah, head on over there and help us out, and we'll see you. Well, we won't see you.
But we'll talk to you next week.
Yes.
Ooh. Na 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 na. Dr. Gregory, he believed in me. All of the grown-ups think I'm a lost cause. When was the last time someone didn't write me off to lunch? And then we found him with no head. Cordelia's screaming, but she's real resilient. Shouldn't someone be calling law enforcement? I won't ever be teacher's pet. I'm really just not cut out for it. Slayers weren't meant to study entomology. Could somebody please put Blaine on mute? And would you get a fucking load of this substitute? Spinning her head around on top of her neck. Who'd wanna be teacher's pet? Na 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 na. Masculinity, so prone to fragility. Just look at Xander puffing his chest, sparring with Blaine in this regressive contest. How often it's been said, pretty girls just make boys lose their heads with their smiles that say take a chance on my mandibles and serrated hands. They all wanna be teacher's pet. I'm really just not down with it. Gotta save my friends from a giant she-mantis. Virgins are her favorite, but she hates fat sonar. Sure makes hacking off her limbs a little less hard. It's been an evening that I won't soon forget. Who'd wanna be teacher's pet? Na 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 na. Some homework. Let me just put these glasses back where they belong.
Hi, I'm Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life. I talked to acclaimed director and executive producer Roland Emmerich,
When I saw the first race, I was like giddy.
actor Ewan Ryan,
For an actor, that's a dream, although you do get a lot of sand in your sandals.
and so many more.
You helped summon those ghosts back onto that stage.
Every day when I went to set, I was giggling about what I saw.
I think it's going to be a breathtaking thing.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the small town of Chinook, where faith runs deep and secrets run deeper. In this new thriller, religion and crime collide when a gruesome murder rocks the isolated Montana community. Everyone is quick to point their fingers at a drug-addicted teenager, but local deputy Ruth Vogel isn't convinced. She suspects connections to a powerful religious group. Enter federal agent V.B. Lauro, who has been investigating a local church for possible criminal activity. The pair form an unlikely partnership to catch the killer, unearthing secrets that leave Ruth torn between her duty to the law, her religious convictions, and her very own family. But something more sinister than murder is afoot, and someone is watching Ruth. Chinook, starring Kelly Marie Tran and Sanaa Lathan. Listen to Chinook wherever you get your podcasts.